Hello and welcome to Confidently Wrong, a show by regular dudes talking with confidence about content we have no right to speak about with any kind of authority, but do it anyway. I'm Wesley Nakamura, and as always, I'm joined by award-winning director Brian Redondo and Savon Jones, aka Captain Vonnie. This is episode 110, and we join the Guardians of the Galaxy on their final adventure with James Gunn at the helm. I'm confident that it's going to be the best show you've ever listened to, and well, hey, if it's not, you can always ask us for a refund.
Incredible!
Hello, gentlemen.
Howdy.
Hello. Good to see you guys.
Lovely.
Savon, you've been sick this week. How are you feeling today?
Better, but not great. I've been sick for almost a week, dog.
7 out of 10?
Oh, no, I give this a solid, I don't know, I'm not as bad as I was during the main week, but this is a very solid 5 out of 10. I mean, what I've told folks is normally when you're younger, you think, oh, I'm sick. I'll get to miss work today, and I'll get to chill at home. And now I'm at that stage of life of, it ain't worth it no more. I got shit to do. I have things that need to get done, tasks that need to be accomplished. My job doesn't freeze just because I'm at home sick. Half the time, I'm too sick to even enjoy being at home. I'm past it. The classic, I took for granted not having a scratchy throat and stuffy nose, and I'll never forget those days when that wasn't the case because I'm in that blender right now.
The pile of
coming
work
off, so I'm kind of cold.
I am, but like the coming off is taking a hot little minute. Like I was coming off it since Thursday night. I'm like, yo, okay, like we're supposed to be tapering off. What is going on? It's like the last act to Avatar 2. Like, hey, we still in this thing? Like, damn. I thought we were supposed to be done, a half hour ago.
When does that come out on
I
Disney+?
thought we were supposed to be
need
done
to watch
10 years ago.
Right? It's like Wakanda Forever. Like, damn, we've been here 2 hours and 15 minutes. We still got another 15 to go. Lord.
Speaking of long movies, this was a long movie too. We're going to talk about Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which just came out this weekend. But Brian, it's been a while since we've seen a full Guardians movie. I don't even know when the last one came out. Maybe like 2017, something like that. 2016.
Time.
It's been a while. They obviously were obviously quite involved in Infinity War and Endgame. So it's not like we haven't seen them, but even that's been a while. Endgame I think was 2019. So catch us up.
Yeah.
How does this follow on from Volume 2? What's the premise for this one? What should people, know going in?
Do we, the thing is, do we even remember Volume 2?
I don't.
It's not only that it was a while ago, it was kind of mid, right?
Are you high?
I knew
mid.
Savon was going to say that. But I have a feeling that it has probably aged better than I think it has. It's just like one of those things that's a little bit off the map at the moment. Like people remember the first one for sure. The second one came out and it was weird because it was about Peter Quill's dad, who turns out to be a whole planet. Ego, the living planet, played by Kurt Russell. Kind of like a bizarre storyline.
It was super bizarre.
There's Mantis gets introduced in that, and like things going on with the planet, and Yondu dies. A whole mess of things happen in that, right? Oh, and then like Groot was baby Groot, and then
so he didn't have much to do.
Yeah. So it was a very strange jump in the Guardians timeline, and then we of course get to see them a lot in Infinity War. They're briefly in Endgame. We lose Gamora. And then there's that holiday special, which Wes hated.
That was so fun.
It was so bad.
That was good. That was such great world building in hindsight.
More than the Warriors. And
it was awful.
I mean, I think it was entertaining, but, oddly enough, the holiday special, is an important linkage in the Guardians timeline, because in the holiday special, we learned that they took over Nowhere, the skull-like planet that the Collector was on. They've taken over. They're setting up shop there. Also, Mantis and Drax are sort of a pairing. Cosmo the dog is suddenly in play. Great. Cosmo being who, and I had to look this up too. I was like, where did Cosmo come from? I only know him from the Marvel Snap card game. But Cosmo apparently was one of the collectors, or part of the collector's collection.
So he just stayed there.
You see Cosmo in Guardians 1, I think. When they go to the collector's place, Cosmo is one of the exhibits of, like, you see a dog in a space uniform. So it's a deep cut they just
And then
decided
Howard
to
the
flesh
Duck.
out.
Yeah, like suddenly Cosmo has telekinesis.
Oh yeah,
Like that's
with rocks.
That's like a kind of like unexplained thing, but you roll with it because it's Guardians and it's just weird. And James Gunn is doing his thing out here. So once we arrive at Volume 3, we're deeper into the thing going on with Nowhere. Gamora, as we know it, has already been killed by Thanos in the Infinity War saga, and now we're dealing with out of timeline Gamora, and the fallout between her and Peter Quill, a fallout that she's not even aware of because she's from a different timeline. And then of course, Volume 3 really hinges on our good friend Rocket Raccoon, and that's where this movie really takes off from.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
Thanks, Brian. Rocket's kind of the central emotional heart of this movie. It turns out, more so than in the previous movies. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But Savon, you've been pretty adamant about your low opinion, I think, of the Guardians franchise, the Guardians movies in general. Can you remind us why you've been just wrongly underwhelmed by the Guardians?
Okay, first of all,
so
you're
far?
not about to just say I'm wrongly. You're not about to sit here and put my correct opinion in a box.
Completely bad takes.
No, because
here.
my take is
you get on me for bad takes.
Yeah,
Guardians
but here's
is
the
one
thing.
of the most
But
beloved
first of
movies
all,
in the Marvel
lots
universe.
of awful things are beloved. So let's get that out the window right off the bat. Like, let's just handle that. First of all,
like heroin.
Yeah. Second of all, when I'm coming at you with a point about something I dislike, here's the difference between me and you. I'm going to come with concrete evidence to back up any claims I make. I'm not just saying shit because it's from the fields. I got visual evidence. I got receipts. Before this episode, I went and rewatched the parts of Guardians I hated. The biggest thing about Guardians that didn't work, what?
You hate watched it?
I didn't hate watch the movie. Oh God, no! I have better things to do. But there was a certain scene.
You have your own
certain
mixtape?
scenes that I was like, I didn't like this, and I want to make sure. Hey, maybe my opinion shifted. Maybe I was wrong. Let me go rewatch it to see if on a fifth viewing years later it's different. Like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
I feel exactly the same.
That's not why you watched that. You watched that to bring your receipts. Let's go.
We know you hated the dance scene.
Both things could be true. So here's the big thing I had. My biggest issue with the first Guardians movie was that I was not sold on but I was not sold on them being this group of people in this prison who have no type of altruistic values suddenly becoming like a mercenary superhero group or some shit. I was like, this is dumb. Y'all just broke out of prison and suddenly y'all all becoming buddy when y'all could just go y'all separate ways. I thought that was whack. And
they set that up.
It was so poorly set up. So first of all, straight up, the first movie, them being a group, I already was like, yo, this is like a not good D&D campaign of motivations of why these characters. I played bad D&D campaigns where the character motivations align better than it did in that movie. But whatever. But that undermined their legitimacy as a group. And I will die on this hill.
They're brought together by their banter, okay?
Peter Quill doing the dance battle when Ronan got the Power Stone about to destroy the planet and start doing the Ooh Child was the dumbest shit I have ever seen. It is up there. It was
what
awful.
A payoff.
That is
the fact
top
that Ronan,
MCU moment.
The fact that Ronan stopped what he was doing to watch this man just dance, and when he had everything he needed to win, like, this is stupid. But even when he touched the stone that we established kills people who touch it, all right, cool. But when them people all hold hands with the power of effing friendship and stop the stone from destroying what we have established destroys planets, people, all that, I could have been looking behind the people at me in the theater the way I rolled my damn eyes at that nonsense. That was awful. That sunk. The movie had a lot of other things that did great, but I wasn't so.
The best parts of the movie.
These were the worst parts of that movie, and it still befuddles me because so many things people complain about in Marvel movies as tropes, and whether they're right or wrong, I'm not gonna argue that piece. But man, it is like a double standard of, y'all mad about quippy moments, and the climax of this movie is an effing dance battle and the power of friendship? Boy, I needed a cigarette after that nonsense. Also, Guardians 2 was amazing. Straight up. Like, Guardians 2 was a way better movie than Guardians 1. So for me,
wasn't that compelling.
Nah, you tripping, bro. It was a good, just found family daddy story. That one's your daddy. I'm your pappy. All that. Nah, man. Guardians 1 just left a really sour taste in my mouth of a really fun movie that just had moments that were so incredibly stupid that it undermined what was a very creative, well put together film.
I'll say this. I don't particularly that was like silly and stupid, but I feel like the MCU kind of needed it. This was the first one that was off the wall of a bunch of people that we had just never seen and never heard of, and so he had free license to do whatever he wanted. And he did it.
No, you're right.
The movie and the movie knew what it wanted to be, and I think some of the things we've criticized MCU for is when a movie is trying to do too much and they kind of don't have like one singular just vision for what the movie is. And I think James Gunn clearly set out to make a movie, and he did it. And
he clearly set out to make a movie. Yeah, filmmakers go out to make a movie, Wes. Next thing you know, you're going to tell me chefs are going out to make meals.
Cops eating a donut.
Yeah.
To make a movie that had, a particular voice and a particular vision, and maybe that vision didn't align with your particular taste.
Nah, because all what you're saying is true. Personality. Nah, everything you're saying is true, but that doesn't take away from those moments being dumb as hell. Like all that, I agree with everything you said. I still agree that was they could have had all those things and not had the dumb stuff. Whatever though, let's talk Guardians 3. Guardians 1 was trash. Guardians 2 was good.
Wait, but when you talk about like people being mad at quips, we realize though that Guardians Volume 1 was the architect or laid the foundation for what all the MCU came afterwards. So I think it's actually worth mentioning, like James Gunn, who is now the head of the DC Extended Universe, you really laid the groundwork for how the MCU has played out ever since Volume 1 came out.
Yeah, and that's the first time we see Infinity Stones actually like play a role. So it kind of sets it up. Thanos kind of makes a small appearance, I think, at the very end.
Cap 1 is all about an Infinity Stone.
Tesseract.
With the Tesseract, but we don't know that it's got an Infinity Stone in it, do we? At that point,
I mean, and it's cool. Let's
keep going. All right, so the next part. Now we can do some spoilers because hopefully you've seen this movie. It's freaking amazing. Our last two forays into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, aka the MCU, were Wakanda Forever. We got that in the fall of last year, and then earlier this spring we got Quantumania. How does this movie stack up to those for you? Brian, let's start with you.
Let's also not forget Love and Thunder.
No, we can forget it.
The
recent crop of MCU movies. But
last July.
This is miles ahead of Love and Thunder. I think it's somewhere sandwiched in between Wakanda Forever and Quantumania. Right? It's somewhere in the middle. This film or this movie, I'm really glad that it exists and that we're in this corner of the MCU again that feels wholly original, as as Wes talked about, right? It feels like a James Gunn movie, right? It's very distinct. It has its own visual style. It has its own quirks and characters. And and another thing that
and all of his friends.
Yeah, if you James Gunn friend, you will not be short of work.
Cameos out the wazoo for anyone that has ever met James Gunn on the streets of LA.
Hey, that's the guy who served James Gunn coffee. That's the whole movie. Hey, that's his landscaper.
James Gunn's barber.
Right.
And the other thing is another thing that I almost forgot about, just like being in the Guardians realm of the MCU, is that it's just chock full of likable characters. Like everybody has so much personality and is enjoyable, and even the new additions like Cosmo the dog, right? And they're all full of heart and charm that frankly is absent from a lot of the MCU. So it is really refreshing to be in Guardians Volume 3. And I think this movie to me does not live up to Guardians Volume 1. And part of that is just like the newness for me, of when I experienced that first Guardians movie. But what this movie does have is a lot of the same creativity and ingenuity that movie had. And and extends it into this 2.5-hour extravaganza, for better or for worse. Well, you know, and which ultimately to me makes it, you know, slightly not as good as Wakanda Forever, which felt a lot tighter. Even though that movie was also like 3 hours and change long or whatever. But yeah, it was a good ride.
Sav?
Mostly agree with Brian. I mean, this movie is firmly better than Ant-Man. I think it could. Some people are going to probably put this movie above Wakanda Forever. I think it just depends on what Marvel aesthetic you're more into. Like those two movies are almost apples to oranges in terms of the tone, setting, the themes they like to lean into. So it's hard for me to just say, oh, one is definitively better because they're trying to be very different things. But I think this goes into that higher tier of like, what are movies that you would tell someone, regardless of whether you're a Marvel deep cut, you should watch this? I think Guardians falls into that category a little bit. With the only challenge being that you still need to do a lot of like previous movie watching to get a lot of some of the things happening, which is less so the case with Wakanda Forever. But in terms of like quality movie watching, this is right up there. I think I like some of the aesthetic stuff about Wakanda Forever more, but don't get it twisted. This is some top tier Marvel MCU content that strikes an amazing balance between being quality Marvel content and IPs and characters, and which we'll probably talk more about, letting the director kind of letting them cook. Like, this is what James Gunn does. Let that man cook. You know, you can't have a player you can't put LeBron into a system. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could have a system to help make things go smoother, but you gotta let him cook. And
the system is LeBron.
Yeah, like Gunn was in his bag. Like, there's still something. This movie is not perfect, but Gunn was in his bag and made a damn good movie.
But I think they probably reined him in a little bit here, in comparison to Volume 2
and
in
Suicide Squad.
And Love and Thunder. I actually do think they probably put some more guardrails up around him, or he decided to have some of those guardrails around for himself to not
Guardian rails.
Yeah. To not go so far in that direction. That's for you, Brian.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, sound man.
Like, I don't know who did the job of balancing out like the balance between studio, director, all that, but the movie felt like, I think he was a little bit self-indulgent at moments, but not to a point where
a little.
Like, there were some moments where I'm like, all right, you're doing a lot, but it wasn't like Love and Thunder where I'm like, oh, someone needs to actually come in and like tell this dude, hey, bro, you had a 10, we need you at a 7. Like, either, I don't know what the process was, but it was I think it struck a balance of not just being a not Marvel movie, but still letting the director like have creative control. This was a very good, I never felt distracted saying, oh, James Gunn is just like doing way too much right now.
Yeah, it's like, you can't go too far. You can't try so hard to make the joke land that you just completely like leave the movie for a minute and then come back. Like, it's just too jarring.
The movie had restraint.
Too extraneous.
The movie had restraint that Love and Thunder did not have, and that restraint, which I want to talk more about, is what elevated this movie from being good to being great. There were like maybe 4 or 5 moments in the movie where I'm like, oh, they let this breathe. This was the best decision, and this was like a fork in the road. This is a better movie because of this decision, and respect to whoever made that happen.
I think my reaction to this movie actually is purely based on how emotional a couple of parts were. So I think there's a lot that goes on that maybe is just like it's good, it's fine, it works. The movie hums along. Like, I never really felt like it was slowing or dragging. I think maybe some people might find certain parts, but I didn't. I was like in it from the minute we said go to the end. My attention was 100% locked in. This was a no cell phone movie. I never felt tempted once to look at my phone. But
in the theater, are you bringing out your cell phone? Do I know what you're saying?
No, but like if I was watching at home, I wouldn't have taken out my phone. I would have just been glued to the screen. Like it was just me and the movie, and that was it. There was nothing else going on. Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. So the moment, and this is heavy spoilers now at this point. So Rocket, when he flatlines, and you can feel Chris Pratt's pain, right? Or he brings it through, his character's pain. and just despair at having lost what he keeps calling him his best friend, right? And he explains that like he's losing all these people in his life, and you can just feel like how these pains have stacked upon each other, how these holes in his life has sort of stacked upon each other. Just that cut me pretty deep. And then at the very end, in a different way, also cut me really deep was him being able to acknowledge that he didn't want to go home, right? And after having, everybody kind of poke at him and be like, hey, like, this is a thing that's, like, really bothering you and you keep repressing it. And then he finally goes and sees his grandfather, and his grandfather's reaction was just like, oh, man. Like, real. That one hit me hard. I don't even think you have to be a parent to understand that, right? Like, everybody just, like, I don't know.
You're right. Mantis did it best.
I'm tearing up now just thinking about, like, how the span of time this man was without his grandson, had no idea, assumed he was dead. And then to him to show up and say, like, Grandpa, I'm here, like, oh, it was too good.
Mm-hmm. Mantis even said, right, like, hey, he lost his daughter and you disappeared in the same day. So, like, even she did a good job of saying, hey, bro, like, just because you're the main character doesn't mean that other people don't have their own stuff going on. Like, I thought they did a good job of kind of reminding you, the viewer, of it's easy to think, oh, yeah, he just left Earth. Yeah. Like, nah.
Mantis set that moment up for sure.
Yeah, that was
100%.
a great... They did a good job utilizing her character for just, like, those emotional
Yeah, she did a lot of
moments.
that. She did a lot of that throughout the movies, and especially, I think another emotional moment, maybe not quite as powerful as Peter Quill crying at Rocket's hospital bed, but when Mantis is defending Drax to Nebula and basically saying, like, he might be stupid, but he.
I'm not sure I appreciate this.
He's bringing a lot of things to the table, in just like including
and then it comes
his
true,
investment
right?
in the group, and I found that actually be powerful. And Mantis is doing a lot of kind of psychoanalyzing of the other
She's
Guardians
the group empath
throughout the movie.
Yeah,
which I think serves the movie really well, because suddenly we're getting into the interiors of all these characters who we like because of their banter, or because of their style, or because their fighting ability or quirkiness. But we're actually taking it a step further and getting to understand their motivations and their flaws in a deep way. Mm-hmm. And and that's something in comparison to James Gunn's Suicide Squad, which was like all James Gunn, like all of his fun and manicness and whatever. But without any of the heart, right? That was like a pretty cold movie by comparison. This is
Suicide Squad or The Suicide Squad? The second one, right?
That James Gunn directed. The one with the giant starfish.
I thought the second one did a good job of that. I felt like his skill in that movie showed in this one that he seems to be good at having an ensemble cast and actually making everybody, people don't feel like background characters. I think one of the best things this movie, I don't know where else we talk about this, Wes, so I'm just going to pick now. Is one of the best things this movie did is that you have an ensemble cast of a lot of characters. We've had arcs that have spanned multiple movies. They did a great job of knowing who to slide around to who's going to get the most time, right? Like, they took Rocket out the main lineup and put him on the sideline, so that frees up a lot of screen time for everybody else. But you get to develop him differently because he gets his flashback sequences, which I think we all agree one of the best parts of the movie. Rocket's backstory, but then that lets the other characters who have gotten less time, like Nebula, like Drax to an extent, like Mantis, to kind of step forward. And then because Gamora got so much development in previous movies before her death, this new version doesn't have to nearly be as front and center. They did a good job of deciding, who's going to kind of get the bulk of the development time and who's not. And I don't know, that was it is hard to make all those characters work and have meaningful things to contribute. And I feel like much like with the Suicide Squad, James Gunn did a really good job of, like, I never just felt like, oh man, so-and-so hasn't really had anything to do this movie. Like, Mantis did a lot. Drax did a lot. Nebula did a lot. Star-Lord, he's the main. He's going to do a lot. Even Gamora did a lot. And Rocket didn't do a lot, but again, he emotionally drove the entire story through flashbacks and just being the MacGuffin or the main thing everyone's, rallying around. And that is hard to do. And I wanted to shout out the movie for that.
I mean, I agree with you that the movie does a great job, and the Guardians generally, and James Gunn also generally, do a great job with the ensemble cast. I think, though, putting Rocket on the sidelines of the movie and focusing him in flashbacks, I have very mixed feelings about. I enjoyed getting to know Rocket and where he originates from and what's driving him and all of that, making him less of a one-note character into something more three-dimensional. That was great. All fine, whatever. But by pulling him out of the group dynamic, I thought we actually lost a lot in terms of comedy. Like the group dynamic was just not as funny and like humming as I wanted it to be, as I expected it to be. And I think part of that is because we lost the pointedness of Rocket, who's able to like jab everybody and, just add like a level of craziness that the group needs. And so I actually thought a lot of the group comedy moments didn't really land as well. And, I have a feeling it's because Rocket wasn't there, and there's several moments where, Quill and Drax are kind of like doing rehashes of jokes we've heard in previous movies, but they were just so flat. I don't know.
Actually, I think you're right. Rocket's a good blend of sharp. Yeah, you're right.
It's a trade-off.
No, I think I agree. Rocket is a good blend of. He's the only one in the group who's maybe that blend of being competent, but witty and sharp, but also a little bit of mean, but also still has a leadership quality. Like all the others have some, but not all. Right? Like Quill isn't nearly as sharp. Now. Nebula's a bit more mean, but not really witty. Drax is, like he's kind of that. He'll talk crap and tell you stuff, but it'll still be what you low-key need to hear. No, that's fair. I actually didn't think about that, but you're right. He's the jerk friend who you didn't realize you need until he's gone.
Yeah, you need somebody to stir the pot.
Yeah, he's the pot stirrer that we needed and didn't have.
He and Star-Lord often bring out like the worst / best in each other, and so that leads to some good.
I mean, that was all the Guardians too, right? Like the best part of the movie was they're just jabbing back and forth, leader co-leader dynamic. So no, that's a fair criticism.
Fair enough. So this movie does, though, I think, have Star-Lord take a little bit of a step back. He's clearly the focus of the last one, and maybe too much of the focus of the last one, if I remember it correctly. But in this one, it very much feels a little bit more balanced, and then we get to spend and see a little bit more of the buildup of Rocket and Nebula especially. We get a little bit from the other ones, but I think Rocket and Nebula seem to have their presence felt a little bit more in this one. Did that seem to work for you, having those two kind of take on more of a larger role? And hopefully it wasn't just because they want them to continue, in the franchise, but hopefully it felt to me like it made sense to. We've had 2 movies of Peter Quill and Star-Lord. It made sense to actually let's explore some other pieces of this puzzle in a more deep way. And we still got a lot of Star-Lord, but I don't know. Savon, what do you think?
Yeah, so I'm glad you mentioned this because this is a subtle thing that was a great direction continuity decision, right? It's easy to forget that how long ago Endgame was and the universe getting snapped away and then, all the ramifications of that. But we have to remember, in Infinity War when Thanos won, the only Guardians who survived were Nebula and Rocket. Everyone else died and was gone for 5 years.
Yeah, they spent that 5 years together.
They were together that entire time. They were the ones leading the Guardians, no one else. So those two had a lot of off-screen development time. Another thing, and this was something that they were planting the seeds for even in Volume 2, right, is you're already getting the Nebula, she's not as evil as you think she was. She was a victim of circumstance. She just wanted a sister in Gamora, right? That's a big part of Guardians too. And same with Rocket, when him and Yondu's whole thing of, hey, you're afraid of caring, you're afraid of this, or you're afraid of being emotionally open. And Yondu's like, yeah, because that's how I used to be. So you already had seeds of their arcs of growing to be more connected and caring in the last movie. But it works because, again, they spent a lot of time together in Endgame. A subtle thing you might not catch is that when Rocket flatlines and gets brought back to life, what's the first thing Rocket says after being in purgatory, almost dying, coming back after all that? The first thing he says, where's Nebula? That is the first thing he said. It's subtle, and if you haven't watched all the other stuff, it might not really feel significant, but they did a good job, I think, of playing the long game with their character arcs and not just ignoring what's happened in previous films. like I said, like Nebula has become my favorite Guardian, and I did not expect that to happen with just the arc of how these movies has gone. But they played it really smart, really well, and really consistently.
I really expected them to do a whole lot more with Peter and Gamora and figure out a way to get them back together.
Thank God.
And I'm so glad they didn't. Well, yeah, and I would have enjoyed that story. I like love stories, so I would have enjoyed it.
It's an alternate dead version.
Wes loves love.
Yeah, I love love, but the movie that we got was really great, and I'm glad that they had Star-Lord take that step back, just a half step. It wasn't even a full step, just a half step. And then we got to see other people shine a little bit. It's like LeBron in his 38th year. We've seen you do it, bro. Like, yeah, take that step back. Let other people carry the load for a bit here.
Well, the good thing about a trilogy is you get to focus different characters.
Yeah,
but Wes, can we take this idea? Like, let's just think this through. If Peter Quill and Gamora, if they actually got together, this out of timeline Gamora,
yeah,
coming in as a stand-in for your dead girlfriend, ew.
That would have ruined the movie.
You look just like my dead girlfriend. I want to love on you. Please fill in for her and just be exactly like she was. Thanks. Let's do it.
Also,
gross.
I'm a stranger to you.
Gross, man.
Also, I am a complete stranger to you. Yeah. Not like we didn't know each other like that. She literally said, "Who are you?" Because you're a stranger. For the record, if they had done that, that would have tanked this movie. That would have single-handedly ruined this movie for me if they tried to really force that crap.
Somebody in the boardroom was trying to do that, though.
Yeah. Wes wasn't in the boardroom.
I mean, there's something to it, though,
no,
right?
There's not something to it. I'm not going to stand. I'm not giving up ground on this, Wes.
All right. Well, here's why I thought you could have made that work.
Brian?
She is at some point this was the same Gamora, right? Like back in 2014, this is the same Gamora, and obviously her life path goes a different way, given that she then time jumps, 8 years into the future or whatever. But her what do you want to call her soul, her whatever, could still be connected to that particular destiny, and so it would reinforce that like soulmate nature of Gamora and Peter Quill. Like their unlikely pairing in the first place maybe wasn't so unlikely. Maybe it was something that actually was like greater forces of the universe at work to bring them together.
Oh my goodness!
Wes, the whole theme of this,
you're trying to do star-crossed lovers.
Wes, the whole theme of this movie was to not make people and things into something that they never were meant to be. That's like the whole crux of this movie. Stop trying to fit a round square into a circle hole. Or a square peg into a round hole.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh my goodness!
Wow.
I like that they didn't go that way. Good thing I'm not a
Brian,
writer.
what is happening right now?
I can't wait for the day somebody off the street goes up to you, Wes, and is like, I knew you in another life. We were star-crossed lovers. We're meant to be. Be mine.
A lady at the school said I look like her son, and I did look like her son. But she wasn't weird about it. She was just like, "Oh, you look like my son. That's cool." And we went about our respective days.
She didn't force you to be her son.
She didn't try and make me come to family dinner and invite me to church gatherings and meet her son and all this other stuff. Like, dang. Oh, great decision to not do that.
Seems like a missed opportunity. You could have been getting free church food.
Brian, please.
You could have been sucking at her never mind.
What? Jesus.
Cut this
out.
That took a left turn.
Speaking of things that should not be forced.
Okay.
In terms of things that perhaps didn't work 100% in this movie.
All right, let's go there.
I'm going to, this thought crossed my mind while watching this movie.
Uh-oh.
I already said I appreciated learning the backstory of Rocket. However, was it actually corny when we're thinking about it, like doing the flashback thing and broken animals in a cage, a la the distorted toys in Toy Story, like, oh, we're in a cage and now we're running around in our cages and screaming and having fun and we want to go see the sky. Like, was that actually dumb? Like, let's be honest here. Like, if that showed up in another kind of movie, like, you're probably not riding with that. And I think James Gunn is cashing in on the, kind of the good grace we have for these characters, just because like we know Rocket, and I love that in the beginning of the movie they do the baby raccoon and then they dissolve into adult Rocket. Like I love that, and I get that.
Great VFX, by the way.
He's kind of like taking us for a ride on this one, and like, okay, I buy it. Sure, that's where Rocket originates, but ultimately what it boils down to is a bunch of like furry animals in a cage, like professing their love for each other. I don't know. And then to come back at the end, like in the the bright light tunnel, and he's about to die, and he sees his old friends, like the bunny with like the tentacle legs, and the walrus with the wheels, like, hey, you can come and play with us again. Was that actually good? I don't know. Like, I guess I'll take it, but could we have done something else? I think there's definitely room for creativity here.
So I think you're right in that this isn't exactly some new original trope. The idea of a character who's just had, awful things happen to them, the animal stuff, like it's low hanging fruit to just say, all right, we're going to have this person just torture animals. And that's the easiest way to make an unlikable villain, right? Like, it's very low hanging fruit. Kick the puppy. Oh yeah, he's a jerk. Cool. Easy to hate. I think you're right in that regard. I think what made it work is that how this is all going to end the moment you see all his friends in the cage. Oh yeah, there's not a happy ending for this. But I think what made it work and not cliche like versions of this in other stories is that I think the execution was just good. I think the scenes of Rocket actually talking with the High Evolutionary and learning his motives made those scenes a bit more interesting, because it wasn't just like it was cruelty for cruelty's sake, but it contextualized it in a way that made it more interesting to watch, because you're still wondering, okay, this is going to end badly, but it was more about the journey for me. And I felt like even though the concept isn't original, the execution and how they went about it was really good. And I feel this way mainly because in the movie, every time they had a Rocket flashback scene, I was already really engaged in this movie. But the Rocket flashback scenes, I was like leaning back and I was like leaning up on my seat. Oh crap, this the good stuff engaged. And I think that kind of speaks more to the execution did really well. Like, yeah, they're in the cage, but like they're genuinely bonding, talking. It worked to flesh out why Rocket is the way he is now. And in that regard, I appreciate it because, hey, Rocket's gruff, he's cursing, he's rude, he's mean, he's all this. Dang, I know awful things happen. What did the actual process of it look like? And when you see it actually play out, it really is tragic like that on screen. You knew the friends were going to die, but the way that they died, him being able to use his intelligence after he had that revelation to break out, showing why he was wanted in the first place, of being inventive, all of that did a good job of fleshing him out. His friends seeing him in their final moments going nuts, shooting and killing people before their own deaths in the fight, like, the execution was very well done to maybe a concept that isn't super original, but it worked for me. Especially, and again, I'm not someone who's just they tortured the animals. Oh yeah, this is an easy way to make them hate it. Like, I felt the same way at first, and I walked away feeling like, hey, this was probably one of the best parts of the movie, but something that I think could have.
It was sad when they died.
It was something that I think it could have fallen flat easily, and the movie did good enough to make it not that, and I gotta give Gunn credit for that. But
nothing further to add on that. Was there anything that didn't work for you, Sav?
The only thing that legitimately didn't work is that sometimes, and this is like where you wonder if James Gunn needs a handler a little bit to reel him in a little bit. There were just a few moments in the movie where I felt like, am I in a music video right now? Is this like an actual commercial for the movie I'm watching in the movie, where it's set piece music playing? The soundtrack was great, and the songs
for trailer.
And the songs, exactly. And the songs I knew I loved. Like when they did the Earth, Wind, and Fire playing. What was the song? Reasons, playing Reasons. I was in the theater losing my. And then when Greg shot and the music cuts and it's all serious, and then as soon as things get levity again, they cut the song right back in. That worked, but there were a few moments where I'm like, do we need to hear
the colorful spacesuits?
Yeah, like that was a bit much. Or like, do we need No Sleep Till Brooklyn for the fight scene? Like, it felt almost the way I felt about Love and Thunder, where it wasn't so much the songs, it wasn't so much the aesthetic, but some of the songs felt a little on the nose. Like, I feel like there's a deep cut Beastie Boys song you could do for that moment that's not just their most well-known one. And that would make the moment feel less trailer-ish, where, trailers do the most popular song that everyone will know of that artist. I don't think you have to do a popular song to make that work. That was probably the biggest thing. Yeah, a few moments I'm like, okay, I don't know this song. It feels a little unnecessary. I guess. I'm not complaining, but I'm like, this isn't really adding to it either. But that's, you live by the James Gunn, die by the James Gunn. You take the good and the bad.
It did start feeling pretty self-indulgent. I agree. That music video feeling. However, I will say No Sleep Till Brooklyn hallway fight scene, incredible.
Amazing.
That was the best part of the whole movie.
The choreography of that scene, the fight and everything was amazing. Like, I stand by that. It's just could they have done a not that song from Beastie Boys and got the same feeling? I'm leaning towards yes, but it's not a hill that I'm going to say, oh, this took away from the movie. But,
So, I don't disagree. I think what you're saying is definitely valid, and if it didn't work for you, it didn't work for you, and that's right. I was watching Screen Crush and New Rockstars, and they both did kind of deep dives on James Gunn and the songs that he chose for this. I think this is more Screen Crush. He was diving into like some of the lyrics and sort of the context behind some of the songs, and he was drawing parallels between like, here are the lyrics that like James Gunn chose to include in the part of the song that he included, and how it fit with the scene and how it fit with the overall themes of the movie. So I don't know how maybe James Gunn's brain works, or how his music sort of lyrical knowledge sort of plays out, or if he has like a helper or researcher or whatever, but the lyrics of the song and the what the subject matter of the songs are definitely ties in. So I mean, even in that scene, the song is definitely maybe too on the nose. It's like a rock anthem. It's just like, hey, everybody knows this is going to be an upbeat thing. But I guess the song, the Don't Sleep Till Brooklyn, is the Beastie Boys writing about their experience of like powering through a huge world tour, and how they're like tired, they're burned out, and like this is the end, and they're going to push through until they get home. And so like this is their last final fight in the hallway. This is their send-off movie. This is their send-off fight. And this is the last time they're going to be all together, fighting together in this way to get home, right, basically. And so that was the parallel here between the Beastie Boys song and this hallway fight. Now, if that doesn't work because it feels too trite as a song, because the song has other baggage associated with it, then it's not successful. But I think the way that he chose these songs seems to actually fit with what he wanted to communicate through this movie being the last movie that he's doing for Guardians, at least for now.
I think we're both right. Like, I agree, I agree. I think the lyrics and stuff.
Is that even possible? The both of you?
No, I mean, it's true. Like James Gunn is that friend who makes the YouTube compilation videos with like the music, the AMVs, the animated music videos. And he's good about sound syncs. He just chooses to do, the Fort Minor, Remember the Name, or Linkin Park Encore. It's still good songs that fit the moment. It's just, they're just really on the nose. He's the guy, if he puts a Lil Wayne song in his video, he's going to do like Steady Mobbin' instead of like a deep cut mixtape song or something. Nothing wrong with that, but, No, I agree.
Savon wants his B-sides. That's what we're talking about.
I just think in general, when movies have a song they put into it, if it's just the top 100 super well-known song, I in general, as a rule, think that tends to just lessen the impact a smidge, because the song has so much, to your point, Wes, baggage outside of that specific moment. But but it didn't take away from the movie by any means. I want to be clear. This is like, if I have to nitpick, that would be what I land on.
Well, I have other nitpicks. Let's talk about those later.
But Wes, can we get an audience applause for the MCU really knowing how to do a hall fight scene? Like, we got Daredevil, number 1, Werewolf by Night, number 2, Guardians Volume 3, hallway fight scene. Chef's kiss. Chef's kiss.
That was really good. And a lot of throwbacks, right? Rocket sitting on Groot's shoulders with his big old gun. That was from when they escaped the original prison back in Volume 1 that Savon hated. All right, let's keep going. So we get a new villain in this one, a sadistic narcissist, not at all grounded. He's the High Evolutionary, played by Chikudi Iuji, as the main antagonist.
Wow!
Did I go to Wikipedia and play the pronunciation 20 times before I figured it out?
Due diligence.
Yes.
Due diligence.
Now use that name in a sentence with Giannis's full name.
Oh my goodness, yeah, that's a lot. But Nigerian, right? Of Nigerian descent, so there's a connection there. Good pull. So how did you feel about? I think his nickname is Chook, maybe. We'll go just Mr. Iuji. What did you think about him? Brian, start us off.
I was so happy to see our good friend Mern from Peacemaker.
Mern.
The Butterfly Man.
And Mern, we know
or the Mothman.
In Peacemaker, like, you could tell this guy is an amazing actor, but didn't have too much to do until the very end.
Oh, God, yes.
And finally, and you're like, oh, I get it. James Gunn is just like, giving this man opportunities. Now he throws him into this role as a High Evolutionary, and did this guy really like take a swing at the role? Like he just like knocked this out of the park. I feel like
different.
And just like delivering us the kind of villain that the MCU has needed for a very long time. And I'm talking about somebody who is like unhinged, just like deliciously sadistic, flat out petty. He's a petty villain.
So
he's just like
petty.
He's just like jealous of Rocket. And he's not sympathetic at all, right? He's not Namor, right? He's not Killmonger with, people who maybe given different circumstances could be heroes in other movies, right? He's not that. Like, and it just
this guy thinks he's a god.
Works so well. He's a guy that thinks he's a god, and he gets the moments to show why he's a villain, right? Like it's not just like, okay, we have a villain and he's off in the distance. No. We get one-on-one time with the High Evolutionary being a total jerk face with his fake face, and that is something that the MCU has sorely lacked for such a long time. Like the moment when his underling is asking, what do we do with Rocket's friends in the cage? And he's just like, incinerate him. Like, why are you even asking me?
Stupid ass question.
Peon. Like, yeah, of course. We're gonna burn them up.
I've blown up entire planets before. I'm about to do it again. I don't think this is
like you don't get it.
I'm upset that you asked me this question. You asking me this question is disrespectful to me and what I'm about.
It's a waste of my time.
Incinerate yourself while you're at it. And he blew up a whole planet of his own creations. Like
he's playing
because
Civ
his creations
on dev
his
mode.
creations are like as utopian as he wants them to be. They're still on the streets selling meth. Like, that is phenomenal. That is a phenomenal thing. And the High Evolutionary is a high point for MCU villain. And I hope we get more of these guys. And now that I'm talking about it, now the next step that I want from the MCU is a villain that that we can love to hate, but now I want a villain who we just like really need to outsmart their abilities. That's the next step for the MCU. Somebody that like they just have a crazy ability, and we got to figure out as a team how we're gonna outwit what they're doing with that ability. That's phase 2 in the evolution of MCU villains. So let's get there.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, this was a great ungrounded. I mean, this guy was not at all like, let's understand about how we could get to this place or blah blah. It's just like, no, this guy is he's just off the deep end, and that's, I think that has a place, especially in comic book movies. He's clearly like, they just played into the fact this is a comic book movie and we could have a comic book villain with no actual redeeming qualities about him. Maybe his dad didn't love him or didn't stick around or whatever, but he wants the whole world to just be a perfect creation. Maybe he's seeking the validation from parents that he never got for being, imperfect or something like that. And I wouldn't want to see a villain like that in every movie. I think Marvel has done a great job of giving us villains that are understandable, that are relatable, that are that are people who are flawed, yes, but like, you know, you could see how they got to that place, and you could even see maybe like if I were in that same position, I might be thinking that's like kind of the thing to do, or I might react in the same way. I mean, even Thanos, right? Like, he's singularly focused on saving, not humanity, but saving life kind, right? Yeah, and he's not wrong that overpopulation is an issue. He's not wrong that like one of the solutions here is let's just make sure that we're not overpopulating and taking over and abusing the resources that we have. I don't know why you couldn't just go to other places, but you know, and he's willing to cross lines that we in general don't cross, but we do cross them, right? And we just say that we don't cross them, and so I think that's what makes villains like that work in a way that can develop over time and that can be actually quite formidable. Whereas, you know, the High Evolutionary is sort of the, you know, he's just the Riddler of the situation here, and he's going to be defeated in one movie. So, I don't know. I like when we get villains that are more three-dimensional, that are more relatable and understandable.
And he's not,
this was also
he's also not Ronan the Conqueror, right? Who's just like silly.
Ronan was...
Ronan
was terrible.
Here's the thing, though, like, and this is... Actually, I give Marvel props to this. I think some of their recent villains, because Marvel, the big criticism with all Marvel movies used to be that the villains weren't good, right? The villains were just a mirror of the hero with a similar power set, and they weren't that interesting. I actually think Marvel, especially, like, say what you want about the post-Endgame stuff, I think the villains have actually been one of their better things that they've been doing of creating good bad guys. Here's the thing about a good villain. Some villains are good about being compelling, and that's what makes it work. But we need to get out this idea that a villain has to be deep or compelling or relatable to be a good villain. You can have someone just be pure evil and they be an amazing villain and it works, you know? There's a reason why Firelord Ozai and, you know, Darth Sidious are such great villains. They don't have to be deep. They're jerks, and this is what their being a jerk looks like, and they're really, really, really good at it, you know? And I think one of the better things this movie did...
And they're willing to cross lines.
Exactly. Well, here's really what the movie did. The movie crossed lines that I think other movies Marvel can be afraid to do. It's one thing to have a villain, but to make the stakes feel real, you have to have your villain really do diabolical stuff. So one, the animal experimentation stuff is an easy way to make him hateable and all that, and that was, again, like a little bit of a low-hanging fruit. But I'm glad this movie did not pull any punches about him destroying that civilization on Counter-Earth. That was a deceptively dark scene. I thought that the movie was going to end with them trying to save Counter-Earth and evacuate the people off of it. That did not happen. Everyone died, like including that nice family that helped the people get to the ship, all the people in that neighborhood, the kids, the city, all those folks died. And a lot of them didn't. It wasn't just like, they were implied to have died. We watched them blow up on screen in front of us, the viewer. Shout out to James Gunn for not pulling punches about... Because even scenes like that, you can lessen the impact of how you film it, what you choose to show on screen. They made it clear. Adam Warlock's mom, the priestess, she died. All those innocent folks died. The dude was very casual of just like, hit the reset button. You know, that was a surprisingly dark moment in the movie that I didn't think they were going to really pull the trigger all the way on. But it worked because it really did solidify him as... he's not just evil because he experiments on creatures and makes these abominations. He will casually just wipe a civilization because he's bored. And then you even see, right, his whole thing about Counter-Earth gets undermined because his next experiment looks nothing like the Counter-Earth people. So he really is just a kid playing a video game in dev mode, just saying, I'm bored, read, delete, except it's real lives. That shit had weight, man. Like, even the Sovereign Golden people, I felt bad for them. I was like, y'all just some of his bored project experiments? This man is... Oof. Make a good villain, but let a villain really be a villain on screen, and that was they stretched the line of what a PG-13 movie is, man.
Yeah. Wait, can I say one thing? I think now that you're talking about this, I actually think that they minimized the impact a little bit there, and partly it was because Rocket was in such peril. But the Guardians actually never really take too much of a moment to realize what just happened, that maybe millions, maybe billions of people had just been wiped out, and people they met, right? And they didn't have to know them. They weren't best friends and they weren't their family, but actually we don't take a minute to just sit there and like watch the planet like explode and have the characters like realize what just happened. And I think we as the audience, like, we know it, but we move on so quickly to be concerned about Rocket and to be concerned about the next step that it sort of does, you realize, like, oh, all these people are dying. Oh, he's destroying the planet. All these people are going to die. But the impact of that actually doesn't register with our characters, and therefore it doesn't actually register as deeply with the audience, I think, as it could have. But
that's how I felt.
You run into the problem of then that takes away from Rocket's moment, which comes right next. There's all these other things that are going to happen next, and so I think they made a choice to not spend as much time there, but they could have.
I don't agree with that. That's interesting.
I only see it as dark as it was now because, Savon, you're pointing it out. I think while watching the movie, I was just like, oh, there goes the planet.
Oh, dang, that stood out to me. I mean, I thought maybe it was just like throwaway lines, but I remember the characters commented specifically, how could someone just wipe out all this stuff? Like, I saw the characters all comment on it, but to your point, maybe it's a fair point of a lot of other plot stuff was happening too, so you don't get a chance to marinate on it. But, again,
commenting's also not the same as reacting to it, right? Like, there was a comments about it, but it wasn't the same as, like, them actually registering and feeling what that was.
They didn't express a sense of horror and just outrage.
You don't think so? I mean, I saw them in the ship.
I don't think so.
Even the weirdo scientist was like, look at him, so stupid, laughing in there. And I remember Groot and Quill looking down in horror like, yo, what the fuck? But you know what? I have to watch the movie again to see. I felt like they commented on it or they acknowledged like, hey, this is really showing how effed up he is. Because even his own people turned on him. But, I have to watch the movie a second time before I could really, before I go to bat on that stance. But I personally thought the movie had way darker moments than I expected that they let breathe, which was probably the best thing this movie did. Every heavy, sad moment, there's only one moment that was serious that I think they put a joke into and it still worked. Every other heavy moment for me was like, oh, this isn't a joke. We're going to let it sit with you. And I thought that was one of the better strengths of the movie. And I thought that was one of those moments.
Well, now I'm sad again, thinking about Peter reuniting with his grandfather.
I'm sad thinking about them innocent animal folks just got boom. They didn't even get to process what the hell was happening. They just cul-de-sac vibing. Boom.
At least they saved some of the animals later. All right, here we go. So sometimes we like to take a little step away from the movie and talk about, learn more about Savon and Brian's wacky adventures. So the Guardians come across
your wacky adventures.
Yeah, mowing my lawn. The Guardians come across a security type character. He's the head of security guy, and he's in this bulbous, weird outfit, which is great. Played by Nathan Fillion, another friend of James Gunn's. And he kind of does this bit where he talks about how he's got like this nepo baby nephew on his squad who's just kind of incompetent. And he keeps blaming him and keeps talking, smack about him. But like while he's right next to him, he's like, yeah, I got one of those, right here. he's like not really ashamed of that. And he just. Do you have any stories of where you just like you're working with someone or a teammate or a coworker who's just basically the weak link in the group and you don't have to name them. I mean, if you want to, feel free. But we could just call them, Sherry or Jared or something like that. Brian, do you have any coworkers who fit that bill?
Apologies to the real Jareds that I know, but I mean, I hate to say it. Inconfidently wrong. Am I the Jared? I'm Wes's college buddy, but I do the least work.
For what
I hardly prepared for this recording.
For what it's worth, I think the big difference and the key difference is that you at least are upfront and self-aware about. For you, at least my understanding of it has been, I do this editing stuff for a living. I don't want to do it in my leisure, and you were upfront. So in my personal
camp,
I'm
not doing homework.
Yeah. So I'm personally in that camp of like you were upfront about your expectations, and so there's no just like confusion, which would be very different if you didn't communicate that and proceeded to also do X, Y, Z.
Hey, it's the land of
I appreciate you like qualifying myself for this role. I have like a couple also other good Jareds. One was a Jared boss. Like, that was way worse, right, than just weak link coworker.
They have so much more effect on your life.
My God,
I had a Jared boss who basically Peter principled into that role. If you all are familiar, you get promoted to your level of ineptitude Like you do something well enough, and then you get promoted, and then you get promoted finally into a position where you're just like incapable, and you stop getting promoted, right? So I had this kind of boss on a video team, making videos was our thing, and Jared straight up like in a room full of people asking like, what's a director? Are directors even needed for making videos? And I'm like, Jared, where do you think this stuff comes from? Out of nowhere? Like,
just the actors do it.
Somebody's got to make decisions here. Person. Like, come on. Do you not know who James Gunn is, Jared? So yeah, that was pretty awful. Oh, thanks. Thanks, Max Weinberg. Appreciate it.
That's the worst. God. And what then if they had been promoted to that, wouldn't they have known what a director is?
No. And that is the Peter principle in full effect. This person was just like riding off the wave of like some resume that was written like generations ago. And it was bad.
No good. Sav? Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, the nature of my work. I work with a lot of young folks, managing folks, and I've definitely just had something.
Working for no pay. To be fair, your young folks are working for very little.
Oh yeah, I know, absolutely. But I don't think that excludes the just professional development piece of just being on top of your stuff. Like you can't say, "Oh, I'm not paid, so I don't get paid a lot, so I'm just not going to do basic descriptions of my job." Like that's true. You literally can go do anything else and you'll be making more money. I am not sarcastic when I'm saying that might be the move for you. But I've just had some people. I've had one person who was just they were young and rough around the edges and had a lot to learn, and that's okay because part of my job is helping you learn those things. Some folks have never had to just be like, hey, you got to check your email every day because this is where all your relevant. It's a skill, right? Like legitimately. But the problem with this person is that they didn't have a sense of shame. And so they didn't like, it's okay to not.
You don't have a sense of shame.
Yeah, but it's different because you can't have a sense.
It's cool.
No, it's not that. Like, if you're going to not have, like, there's still some stuff you should have shame about. And I think there should be shame over not knowing things that you should know. And this person shamelessly was like, oh, I don't even know how to get into my email. I'm like, oh, well, dude, every relevant thing that I will be sending you is in this email.
We told you how to do that. We showed you how to do it.
Oh, one time we had this is like years ago, but one time we had a person come in, a guest speaker, and they promoted, it was a book that they were going to be giving out to the whole core or the whole staff or whatever. I was like, hey, this is my book about this topic we talked about. Good book, by the way. Can't remember because this was years ago, but he was giving out free copies, and I know I went to one of my teams and said, hey, y'all, who wants so-and-so's giving everybody free copies of their book, write your names down, I can get them ordered and brought here. And this person just said, nah, I don't want the book. I'm like, it's a free book about a topic that was a really good speaker at this thing. You just don't want this free book about this topic? Nope. I'm like, okay.
At least pretend.
I'm more thrown off. Yeah, it's not that you don't know things or know how to do things. It's that you have no shame about displaying that full on in front of your peers. And I'm just like, yo, dude, for your own long-term well-being, I need you to you got to be able to play the game a little bit. Shame. True, Wes. I am working to free myself from the shackles of not feeling shame because it's a great place to be. But I still understand the areas of hey, bro, you can't just be okay with this in front of other people.
You can't be okay with your incompetence at the very thing that you're supposed to be doing.
You can't be confidently wrong, basically, or confidently foolish. Cool person, right. But it's just like, dude, I need you to be a little bit more ashamed of what you're doing right now.
Brian, as long as you bring the hot takes, the well thought out illuminations, you can never be the Jared of our show.
I know who the Jared in your household is, though. It's definitely baby Kaya. What a nepo baby.
Oh man, that kid. So the most frustrating thing she does right now is at mealtime, she'll take her drink of milk half full and just look at you straight in the eye and then just drop it off the edge of the high chair. So it just splashes all over the ground. And we'll be like, Kaya, can you put it down? And so the next time she'll do it, she'll drink it, put it down on the tray. And 5 minutes later, this asshole picks up her milk, stares you straight in the eye and drops it off and then goes, uh-oh.
That's gangster.
It's the worst. The
That's
worst. And then
amazing.
we're cleaning up milk like 3 times per meal off the floor, which, like, you know, if it was water, no big deal. But milk, like, gets all sticky and smelly. Like, you can't leave it.
Power move, Kaya.
She wins every time.
Just give her water. Baby don't need milk. I mean, she still need milk.
I don't. Wait, what'd you say?
Yeah,
How
baby,
does she,
just
does
give
she
her
still
water.
need
She
milk?
don't need milk.
I don't
Just
know.
give her water. Like, all right, you can't handle the milk.
I
You
don't-
get some water.
I'm not a nutrition. I'll leave that up to Dr.
holla.
Nakamura.
Hit up.
I don't actually
hit
know.
up. Hit up Jen.
All right. So, I'm not going to share a story. I don't think my stories are as good as your stories. I was probably the Jared at the doctor's office I used to work at. I was really slow playing that job, man. I would do work from 4:30 to 5 p.m. and the rest of the day I'd be on G-Chat and talk to friends who are also on G-Chat. All right, so let's start wrapping this up. I got 3 very tiny bones to pick. You tell me, do any of these actually bother you, or do any of these bother you as well, or did you notice them? Is it just me? Am I just being neurotic about these things? Okay, so here's the first one. So Gamora at the very
answer is
end,
yes.
and again, major spoilers. Gamora at the end finds herself back with the Ravagers, who she had started out the movie with, not with the Guardians now at this point. And just getting like big hugs. They're celebrating having her back in the crew. They're giving her hugs, which, like, she doesn't seem like a huggy type of person. But and it struck me as just like kind of abrupt because she had spent the last 20 minutes of the movie or 30 minutes of the movie getting to know the Guardians, getting to recognize the care that they had for each other. She decides to go back and save Rocket multiple times or save the group. And so really investing herself in the success and survival of these people who she's starting to get to know and recognize, like, oh, these guys aren't so bad. Like, I actually do recognize that they're cool, and starts to like them. And then it just didn't feel like there was a payoff there because she just ends up with the Ravagers, who we hadn't seen her develop a friendship with, hadn't developed that closeness with. And in the very beginning of the movie, she didn't seem like they didn't show us that they were actually a close-knit group. It was just like they were, the mercenaries that they do their normal thing. So it just felt weirdly inconsistent for her to just go there. And I could have maybe seen if she was like there and like contemplating what it was that she was doing with the Ravagers or what it was that she wanted to build with them. But to have them just be like, oh, we're huggy buggies, like college buddies now. I was like, oh, that's weird. That seemed out of character. Did that strike you as anything?
It strikes
Savs
me
apparently as a no.
It strikes me as just you, Wes.
Yeah, bro.
Okay, let's move on.
Well, I
That
mean,
was one thing.
Gamora acknowledges or gets to observe how the Guardians have a family-like relationship, and then she gets to go back to the Ravagers and appreciates them as her family. So I think that's what it is.
Yeah, I think they just didn't. They probably needed another 2 minutes to really develop that somewhere, and they just didn't have time.
The movie does not need more.
Yeah, but then I didn't think. Then I would have just preferred her watching the Guardians and having them just like she was at the end, just have her contemplate like what it was that she was missing, and
But she
didn't have to
wasn't
be with
missing
them.
it. She had it with the Ravagers.
Yeah, she's just
Yeah, but they
appreciating
didn't-
it in a different way. Or she's learning why, why the Guardians care about each other. It's more of a, you can go to someone else's household, see how they do stuff, and then go back home to your people and have a greater appreciation without having to have a big referendum about the original relationship.
Yeah, of course, all of those things could be true, and I think they just didn't include it in the story, and they probably should have if that's where they really wanted to go.
I mean, she even.
All right, I got one more.
All right.
I'm only gonna do one more. It's okay. It doesn't ruin the movie.
A
Hellspawn.
lot of groaning over here.
This one I actually do think is kind of important, even though it's a small thing. And it's an issue of narrative choice and theme rather than in the moment. Like, I get why it was done. So the Hellspawn are these like Frankenstein creatures who were vicious. They were killers. They were designed by the high
War pig.
evolutionary to be killers and security and blah blah whatever, right? So when the Guardians are invading the ship or trying to take over the ship or whatever they're doing, I don't even know what they were doing. In this hallway,
nowhere.
they're fighting some humans, but they're fighting these Hellspawn as well. And holy cow, do they like eviscerate and obliterate these Hellspawn. They're just like, Groot is like sending his tree roots through them or his tree branches through them and then splaying them out. They're shooting huge giant holes through them and turning them to goo. Gamora slices some of them in half, like literally in half. And the Hellspawn are treated as evil. The problem to me is that it didn't make narrative sense because right before that, we're starting to learn like how evil and how sadistic the high evolutionary is in Frankensteining all of these creatures, all of these people, like they're people now at this point, and putting them together and then treating them like nothing, right? Like treating them as less than whatever. And that was one of the major themes of the movie, that the folks who are going through that with the high evolutionary are actually victims, right? Like Rocket is a victim of the high evolutionaries' just sadism and evil, and then the very next scene, they're like, cool, we're just going to, like, destroy all of these characters who are victims of the same exact system. Like, not even like, oh, they're, like, kind of... No, like, they're exactly the same in terms of, like, how they got started and how they're going to be treated by the high evolutionary. And so that shift, immediately, I was like, what? Like, I get it. Like, they're dangerous and they're attacking them.
Do you get
it? It felt like a weird choice. Given what they had just spent an hour of the movie trying to communicate. So that to me felt like a small nitpick, but that actually kind of made the movie inconsistent in what the story it was trying to tell.
So,
Savon, your face.
You want Rocket? You want the Guardians to power of friendship this shit while the people are attacking their city and town? Like, lots of villains have systems that screw over lots of people, and lots of their goons probably are still victims. But hey, if we out here fighting and throwing hands and you trying to kill us, like it's not room for a debate. You want the last sequence to just be saying, hey, actually. Like, nah, there was, and you can go the route of just, even they said, like before they released the Hellspawn, they said, hey, these are mindless creatures that are explicitly meant to just be doing defense stuff. So they even made it clear that they're mindless. There isn't a negotiating with them. There isn't that, oh, they're an innocent, helpless animal like the ones they freed. There's a clear distinction between the creatures of his system that are mindless soldiers that you can't really, that are beyond helping, and then the animals and such who maybe haven't gotten to that point of the victimization. But like
I think you just reinforced my point, but okay.
No, but if they're mindless creatures who are attacking them, there isn't really anything to save or do that's gonna not make the fighting piece happen. Like they literally said, the person who said is gonna release them, hey, hi, do we want to release these? They're literally mindless beasts that we might not even have full control over, and he's like, F it, do it. So, I don't know what you want to do for us to say, hey, how do we save the mindless creatures that are going to be attacking you? Like, there's, villains have certain people in they employ who aren't going to be able to save. It sucks, but, like, that's just how I go.
All right, I got 2 rebuttals, but Brian, do you want to jump in?
Are stormtroopers not going to get sliced by a lightsaber? They are. Even though Star Wars has very much established at this point that they're, just anybody working in their station within the Empire, and they're kind of stuck. Like, they're gonna take one. Like,
goons get beat up. Like, villain goons get their ass beat and or killed. That happens in Iron Man. It happens in Captain America. How many people who get their ass beat who are just drones and just like, hey, that homeless just at work doing this thing? Like, yeah. Sucks to work for the villain.
You guys are very casual about that.
You're thinking about this way too deeply, man.
I am.
Did you want them to subdue the war pig? I'm saying, what you want them to do? The creatures all attacking nowhere. You want them to tranquilize them, talk them down? Hey, they established that they were mindless creatures the writers clearly thought, how do we handle this thing? And they say, all right, we handle it by making them mindless so that there's nothing to really save or help.
And then the counterexample is what Mantis does with the 3 giant creatures that they're fearful of. So
there is a way. Yeah, so actually I was going to bring that up. But okay, so the Star Wars thing, I actually think that is a problem for them, that they've established that folks like Finn are actually like their own
die
people, right? And so to have them do that and then continue to just obliterate the stormtroopers is a little bit odd. And I think it does lead to some like head scratching moments of like,
Wes, what you're saying is we need nonviolent movies, which I totally wholeheartedly agree with you on.
You're describing why war
this
sucks.
Is not the genre for that.
You're describing like why war and conflict sucks. Oh, you mean people who aren't the leaders of a conflict die in a conflict? That, oh man, surprise!
But in the movies, in this movie specifically, where they talked about how these people were the victims in the creation of this guy who was crazy, right? And clearly the villain, and clearly gave no Fs, and was clearly like just unredeemable, that our heroes could at least acknowledge in some way that they're going to try and like do something in a different way. And so like in that fight, actually in the hallway fight, Peter Quill uses those like stun little sticky things, and he zaps the humans.
Those were awesome.
That was, and he sets it off. He clicks the button, and they all like get zapped, and then they all like basically get tasered. Is kind of what it seemed like. They could have done something similar to these Hellspawn. They could have, deployed maybe some more subduing things, like you said, and then maybe if the Hellspawn continue to go, they could do it, but maybe feel bad about it, right? Like there's different ways to go about it, and we saw it in Mantis, right? Like Mantis is able to be like, oh wait, they're not actually. They are snarling and they're big and they're dangerous, and yet if we play this right, we can end up in a situation where we both win.
That's
in
very
context
different.
of Guardians, though, I don't think they care as much as you think that they do, right? Like, I mean, I see what you're saying, Wes, and like,
but even Rocket was doing it, and like those were basically,
the helpless
like,
animals are different from
situation.
the pig with machine gun arms actively shooting at you.
Why?
because they're shooting at you.
Actively trying to kill you in the
The
moment.
thing with Mantis, the example with Mantis, like those creatures didn't actually attack them. That's one thing. And then I also want to
they made their
say,
snarly
yeah,
face.
man, she said because they're scared.
the Guardians are not like other superheroes. They have already established that in previous movies that these are mercenaries
in
who are
this scene-
interested in killing. They do enjoy a good kill. Drax loves
but in
to
this
kill.
Scene, Drax does love to kill.
So does Gamora. And particularly this Gamora.
Shot
this
a lady
is
in the leg.
out of
Hostage. Bow.
out of timeline. Yeah. So she's gonna cut somebody. Like,
yeah, but Quill is
so,
constantly
I
reminding
mean-
them, "Hey, we're trying not to do that." And Rocket has just been
Are
through
they
this
trying not
experience.
to do that? Their real goal
Yeah.
here, they don't care about that planet that exploded, man. They care about Rocket. Rocket
Yeah.
is the driver in this, not some like moral high ground. They're not Captain America in this.
Captain
They're out
America
for their
has a body
friend.
count. Y'all not watch
And,
these
like-
superhero movies? These people be killing people left and right.
They're killing Nazis.
Is it wrong to kill the Chitauri and Avengers? They just soldiers following orders. Should they have tried to stun them? Like, it's a war, dog. Like, you can try to not
No, I
be
get
malicious
it.
when
I
you can,
get
but
that part.
when you throwing hands in a fight,
But they didn't try. And that's my point, is like they didn't even give a head nod to like, oh, we just went through this whole story about how, Rocket was tortured to be put in this position and how horrible that experience
They only
was.
care about that because it's Rocket, though.
Yeah.
That's my
And there's
point.
no-
Is like they don't care about that world that exploded.
And they-
really, they don't care about that woman who they took the car from, who died because her planet was incinerated. They care about Rocket and saving Rocket's life, and that to me, like that actually makes the story more interesting because they're so primarily focused on their friend, and that's what they're about
Yeah.
because they're mercenaries.
So then why did they save all the people in the cages?
Because they decided at
Because
the
they-
end.
because
Because
you
they
had
saw
Drax in
children
them.
and they're like, oh, suddenly we're connected to these children. We're gonna take
yeah,
them
they're
out.
innocent. I mean, you got Drax,
Yeah.
and then Rocket is the one who tells them, "Hey, we can't just save the children. We actually do need to save all the animals and stuff too, because."
And
They
so,
didn't wanna save
couldn't
the
he have
animals
had
at
the
first.
same little like thought
Straight
about,
up,
like,
Wes.
hey, like
I think
guys,
Wes, there's a clear distinction between the unmodified animals, or the ones who weren't these feral beasts, and the ones that are clearly just mindless foot
but
soldiers.
he's modified.
Mindless foot soldiers. There's a difference, bro. Straight up.
But that's what the High Evolutionary is characterizing them as. Rocket should know that like he's not a reliable
Ryan, are we tripping
narrator.
right
we
now?
should know that he's not.
Did we
a
not see a scene
reliable
with a
narrator.
whole tentacle bear monster who was actively trying to kill all the Guardians, and you mad that they use lethal force? Like, what are we doing here? Captain America was killing people
We
in
should
all
have
his
reasoned
movies.
with them.
Iron Man been killing people in all his movies. Every superhero movie, all these heroes have body counts, and lots of the people they kill are just people were at work serving like maybe an evil goon. And dog, war is war. Conflict sucks. Like, don't watch action movies if you mad over who people killing.
I think it makes a
This is
difference
a-
when you spent the entire
This
movie
is an awful
about
hill
how.
to die on, bro. Like, as a friend, I'm
I-
telling you, this is a
Okay.
terrible hill to die on.
And I predicted that you would take that perspective, and
because it's a
I think
reasonable
there's a way to
one.
do
What
it.
the hell, bro?
Yeah. No, I think ultimately, even
Well,
if they had
non-lethal ammo?
done what they did and killed all these Hellspawn, I think there's a way to do it that still feels consistent with what we just spent the entire movie learning about Rocket's past. That's all. All right. I'm gonna skip the next one. Where were Peter Quill's mask and boots? My friend Albert pointed this out. They just don't appear in this whole movie. Weird. All right. What's your confidently wrong rating, and should people go see it? I'm at a 4, maybe a 4.5. Jen is also at a 4. And I think yes.
Out of
everyone
4,
should see it.
even though of the logical inconsistency that they used lethal force against the very beings they're trying to save? Wow, Wes.
I'm still in disbelief about how awful of a take that was at the end, man. We were doing so good.
It's not a take. It was just something I noticed. I felt like it was just inconsistent with the movie itself.
I'm ranking Wes as a 1 out of 5 on his
Wes gets a 1 out of 5.
This episode.
He backslid hard, but this movie I will give a very solid, like, on its worst day, this movie is an 8.5 out of 10. But I could see there being room to put this movie even up to a 9. But, like, I was telling my homies, this movie is an 8 out of 10 at the absolute worst, and I wouldn't say an 8 out of 10.
So universal appeal.
It's a good movie, like, straight up. Like, it's a good movie. There's lots of heavy, emotional, heavy-hitting moments that they let breathe. Like, Rocket crying over his friends, they let him cry uncomfortably long. And then the High Evolutionary mocking him. I can cry, too. You win the crying. Like, that movie was good, man. It had lots of moments where you was just ready to cry. I'm sad we haven't talked about Adam Warlock a little bit, but just a lot of shit happened in this movie.
That's because he was a himbo. He'll have more to do later movies.
Good.
Brian?
Yeah, Adam Warlock, kind of like a weak introduction for a character like that. And felt a little tacked on, you know, like you can tell Marvel Machine were like setting up future iterations and all of that stuff. But yeah, generally I would give this 3.5.
Sort of, but he's been in the works. I mean, he was referenced already 7 years ago.
Yeah, but he just had a
So
post-credit
reference.
scene. We just had like a
But that's a
post-credit.
reference.
Yeah,
that's not an introduction.
that's just him existing.
Yeah.
The movie needed another 10 minutes or so for him, and clearly they just like say, hey, we got to cut something. This is what we're going to cut. And I think that was the right decision.
It's like a 2.5 hour movie. You have this new character that doesn't get like a real fair shake.
In an ensemble cast with characters with arcs going on for 10 years now.
Yeah, right. Who are very well established and people care about like a billion times more than this new character in Goldface. Like, what is that, spray paint that he's wearing? Come on, guys. Anyway, so I would give this, a solid 3.5 Guardians out of 5 Guardians or
Really?
something like that. Yeah, it's good. It's a good movie. I mean, it's fun. It's enjoyable. As I said, it's a great corner of the MCU that feels wholly original. But at the same time, it's like, the banter is not landing as well as it could have or it should have. We got a lot of extra time tacked on. This thing could be chopped by like 40 minutes. The whole bio built
They could have cut that
building
shorter.
that they're infiltrating, like that really went nowhere and didn't need to exist. Like it's a cool
Nowhere,
idea
but
and a cool set piece that could have gone somewhere, but they like just don't do anything. It like the movie, the music video stuff that we talked about. How I felt about just like the idea of using flashbacks and that whole trope. There's a lot of things that I don't think work 100%. Like it's not a taut movie to me. It doesn't earn its runtime, but still very enjoyable. Still great time to be with these characters. Love like the creative touches that Guardians and James Gunn specifically bring to the MCU. So. Oh, and the fake out death for Peter Quill. We didn't even talk about that.
Yeah, they should have killed him.
That was fun. I was into that.
They should have killed him.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a mixed bag, but it's still, relative to the rest of what we've been getting from the MCU, is a quality product.
This movie's biggest weakness, I think, is that you still have to have a lot of Marvel big picture context to appreciate some of the really high points in the movie. So I think it's harder to say, hey, let me get my mama and him to go see this movie compared to Wakanda Forever, where you don't need any real background knowledge. That's probably this movie's biggest weakness, is that the Guardian...
You did need background for Wakanda Forever.
Not in the same extent.
You had to have seen the whole first movie.
You can
Really?
you can watch Wakanda Forever and not really know a lot of what happened in the first one to get the gist of the plot of this one. Because I went with people I know they don't remember the first movie, and they followed the movie fine. Guardians 2, you're wondering nowhere, the dog, how they got there. There's a lot of stuff that happens where you have to see a decent amount of MCU content to get the full spectrum, which that's not the movie's fault.
I don't think that's
not
true
the
on this
movie's fault, and it doesn't take away from it, but like I do think that affects the accessibility factor. Like it doesn't matter for people like me who've seen everything. It don't matter for me, but like it's easier to get my mom to go see this.
Jen had no problem. Jen had no problem following along.
Jen never seen any MCU stuff? I don't think that was an
issue. She's seen some. Yeah, she's seen a lot of it, but she doesn't remember it or follow it.
I'm saying that's different though than your grandma. I could get my grandma to go see Wakanda Forever. It would be harder to get her to watch Guardians and her be able to follow it as easily the same way. But
I agree.
It's not a knock on the movie. That's just the nature of Marvel stuff.
Let's wrap it up there. Friends, that was an hour and a freaking half almost of Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Because you came with that ice cold ass
take. Spend time arguing with you.
Yeah, because you came with that ice cold ass take.
It's not a take.
It was definitely a take. Stand by your nonsense.
I think narrative should be internally consistent. That's all. Friends, that'll do us. Next time, we're going to talk about our summer movie preview, where we get the chance to play Nostradamus and predict how the summer movie blockbusters will play out. Come check us out on our next show. Hit us up on Instagram at confidently_pod. Tell us what you think about Brian and my new haircuts. Later, y'all.
Tell Wes why he's wrong. Bye.